Welcome to the Be a Voice. This is Britt James on USALA Media. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited about today's show. We have a really great lineup of guests here today. And of course, this show means a lot to me because it's dealing with something that I live and breathe every day, recovery. So I'm really excited about it. And hey guys, how are you?
Great. How are you?
What's going on?
What's going
Good
on?
to
see
you.
Glad to be here.
Live today. Yeah. Was it a late night for you?
Not really.
No?
Not really. It was a good.
It was a
night,
long
though.
day yesterday, but in a good kind of a busy way. Yeah. So
good.
still
Busy's
kind of,
good.
Yeah,
especially for
absolutely.
us.
Still kind of processing yesterday's happenings, but it was a good experience.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we do that, let's talk about who you guys are. And where you came from and why we're sitting here today. So Jesus, we're going to start with you down here.
My name is Jesus Rodriguez. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I am a former WWE superstar.
He stole my spot, actually. He said the exact same thing I want to say. Kurt Hussey from Maine. I grew up in Maine. I've been wrestling professionally since 1999. Signed with WWE in 2006 to 2021. I've been in recovery since January 19th, 2019. And this guy right here helped me get sober, Shannon Moore. So I'm going to pass. That's a good little segue to him.
Very cool.
It's not going to be as smooth as his was. Like, I want to get the accent part down. I'm just going to.
He's working on a character this weekend.
I'm trying to. He's training me on that part. So mine sounds a little boring whenever I introduce my name. So it's just my name's Shannon Moore, and I've been in the wrestling game for about 30 years. Wrestled for WCW, WWE, TNA, most of the major organizations. Been in recovery for 6 years now, man. Like, by the grace of God, man. Like, I'm here and I'm sober.
I love that. Well, I'm Chris Dreisbach, and I'm also in recovery since August of 2007. Now these guys make me feel old.
That's great, though.
It is pretty great.
That's
it
really
has been a
great.
really long time.
That's a good reason to feel old, though.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it is a little bit odd looking back to how things were in 2007 and 2008 and 2009 and 2010, and how you couldn't really talk about recovery on a podcast. You couldn't really talk about it on anything. Because
You didn't talk about it at all. It was a stigma.
Yeah, so much of it. But it's so cool that now in 2023 we can do stuff like this and then have that event at Fringe Arts later tonight. So.
Especially when you are a voice or you are in the public eye, and then all of a sudden you're admitting that, there's a weakness that you have, which people think of it as a weakness, and it's not a weakness. It really isn't a weakness. I mean, it's a strength to be in recovery, and people have to realize that. We've fought this stigma for years. So to where it was in 2009, 10, to where 2023 is, recovery has come a long way, and so, for all of us sitting here, we should be damn proud of where we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just jumping off what you just said, man. If I wasn't so afraid of that stigma at a younger age, I would have definitely reached out for help. And I think that stigma, and especially in the world of professional wrestling, egos, it's almost like you're giving up or you're showing weakness.
Right. Or it's not cool.
Exactly.
To not drink or to do drugs.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think people, these organizations that, obviously some of the wrestling organizations, but even in general, just like now working in recovery myself, I don't think organizations like educate on what this truly is, on what addiction truly is, what alcoholism truly is, and what it looks like. So I think, there's organizations, they're not helping, but I think there's a lot of organizations just where these CEOs and these owners, like, they don't understand what it is that people are going through, and they would be able to identify that better if they did, I feel like.
And I look at it and I look at my, my foray into substance use disorder. I never had a problem with drinking. Everybody else had my problems with me drinking, not me, and then it progressed into everything else, into heroin and everything. And I looked at where I was and the jobs that I had and, the life that I was leading, and it was like those were two separate worlds. I had to keep them separate. I had to, people at work may have known, but you didn't talk about it. It was one of those things that it was a black sheep. You just kept it to the side. You didn't speak about it. Now, you should be able to normalize that. You should be able to speak about it. get the people the help they need. So, Jesus, what was that aha moment for you when it was like, enough's enough?
I kept waking up in detox centers, not knowing how I got there. And then my very last one was about a year and a half ago in San Antonio, Texas. I woke up in a detox center. Half of my clothes was covered in urine. I had soiled myself, and I basically had that moment. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Because at that point, it had been a recurring thing that I kept waking up in detox and not knowing how I got there. And that was it. That was the moment. It was about a year and a half ago, last March. So I'm about a year and 14 months
Right on.
clean now. But that was my moment.
That's great. What have you attempted to recovery before? Have you attempted longevity of recovery before?
I mean, I've tried in my own mind that I was able to do this on my own. I thought that I can handle this. I had a grip of whatever this was, which I did not know what it was, right? As it was mentioned, like, I didn't have a problem. Everybody else had a problem with me drinking. Like, they were telling me that I had a drinking problem. I was like, no, I got it down pretty well.
Yeah.
But no, I had tried so many different ways to rationalize or justify what I was doing. And I mean, of course, it was always me.
Spoken like a true mind of an addict, Try to rationalize why we do what we do, and keep that in a perspective that's right. What about you? What was the aha moment for you?
I was in a hotel room. I've been up for probably 5 days. After I attempted for a year to get sober on my own, and being dry drunk was far worse than active addiction, man. It was a shit. So like, it was just, I'm like, if this is life sober, I mean, I couldn't imagine, you're the isolation of, you're afraid to go to Applebee's with your friends because you're gonna fucking do a Jaeger shot, or like, you lock yourself away from the world. So coming off a year of trying to get sober on my own without any help, I wouldn't say relapse, but I started partying again down in Tampa, like we talked about earlier, and it came back with event, just like a hurricane, man. And you try to pick up right where you left off in terms of partying and what you could do before in terms of substances, and it's like that movie Flight. Is my analogy, is like, you spend years of just lying, and you become really good at lying to everyone around you and yourself. And I just so fucking done with lying. Excuse me for cursing.
No, go for it.
And I just knew at that moment, I was just done running 100 miles per hour and lying. And I was actually excited because I knew I was about to take a step to just stop this hamster wheel, And I remember calling a friend of mine that lived locally in Tampa, and I go, he's a wrestler too, and he's like, "You sure this is what you want to do?" And I go, "This is absolutely what I want to do." And about 12 hours later, Shannon picked me up.
There we are.
Yeah, man. So I knew, as scary as it was almost like a weight off my shoulders. Like that last scene of that movie Flight, where Denzel just was tired of lying. And it felt good just to say, fuck it, I got a problem, man. Let's attack this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah.
So as scary as it was, and I was wrestling for the largest company in the world, wrestling company in the world. I didn't really care because I was just done. This is like one of the first true things that I've said in a while,
Yeah.
So, I'll never forget that day. And it's cool that in this community that we're in, that there's a guy sitting right next to me now, fucking 4 or 5 years later, who I consider a brother. So, yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
And that's what recovery really does for it. It brings us a whole new life and family. Yeah. Or it opens up doors, and opportunities to meeting people who we may never thought we were connected with in another way, shape, or form. When I used to go to an IOP or I go to a meeting and I'm sitting in the rooms, I would look across the room and I would say to myself, what the hell do I have in common with any of these people sitting in this room? Oh, I forget what I have in common with them. Addiction. You know, we're all fighting to stay alive, and we all have that in common. But, you know, it took me a while for my brain to rewire and start to think of that and look at it that way, that, you know, there were people that were really out there to help you and not hurt you. Because when you're in addiction, you're so used to getting hurt because you're used to hurting others. So, you know, but Shannon, so you were the, you know, the catalyst for this guy here, huh?
Yeah, dude. Like we, he did it on his own though. Like he come to the facility, you know, like whenever he come into treatment, he was ready. You know what I mean? I was just there to greet him. He did the work. I didn't do nothing special, man. Like, this dude.
Well, I tried to leave like the second day.
Yeah.
Didn't I try to jet on you guys?
You
Like,
did,
fuck
but you
this.
didn't want to. It's like, you're like, I'm gonna leave, but you knew, like, you needed. You needed.
Was
to
that
be
your
there.
first time in treatment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that jetting very well.
I had a
Getting out of
plane.
the car and running.
Sorry to
Yeah.
jump on your story, but I had a plane. I've been out with an injury, and so I had a plane ticket to go to TV, back to TV for WWE. And I'm like, there's no way I can go back on the road if I'm still partying. So I decided to check in to HCC instead. So I just, sorry, Shannon.
No, yeah, it's cool.
And here we are, right? Yeah. Now for me, man, like, God, I was raised by savages, man. Like I was basically born into wrestling, I guess you'd say, but not a second generation wrestler. 9 years old, I started my journey in wrestling. 13, I hit the road, and it's like, you know, grown ass men that party, and like that was the culture at the time, you know. So just time went on. It's like I remember I was probably 18, and I realized like physical addiction had already kicked in, right? Like my body depended on these chemicals in order to wake up and feel normal. And it wasn't a problem because it wasn't a problem at that point, you know. Like I was a functional addict. Like
Right.
I thought because, you know, I was in Starcades and WrestleManias, and I was making the pay-per-views, and nobody was testing me, like, you know, like, nah, it's cool. This is normal. I get injured on a daily basis, so like that justifies me taking these pills or whatever. And then just after years, man, whenever I was, you know, 36, 37 years old, it's like at that point, like, you know, I'd left wrestling for a little bit. I was sitting home, and my, you know, like, God, my drug intake just went through the roof, you know, just sitting there doing nothing. There's no purpose no more. And I think like that's whenever the bottom just got deeper for me, because like mentally, dude, it just got dark quick. Then I was going, you know, having marital problems. I've been divorced. Just my life was just a shambles, man. Like, you know, just it was unmanageable. You know, we hear that a lot. It's unmanageable, and it was definitely unmanageable. But I accepted the fact that I was an addict, and it was, hey, I'm a drug addict, and if you don't like it, fuck you. Like, you can go hang out with somebody else. But unfortunately, the people around me, like, they didn't hold me accountable. They're like, oh, okay, cool. You can shoot dope in your tattoo shop, and, like, we're going to hang out with you. And eventually, man, just, you know, I started losing shit. You know, I started trading it for what I needed, and that was drugs every day. And then from there, like, I knew I couldn't be a normal member of society, and I put this plan together. And looking back, like, it just shows how sick I was, but it was this plan to take somebody's life so that way I'd be locked up for the rest of my life or kill myself. And, you know, I put this plan together. I'm going to go through with it, and I get a phone call from somebody. It's like Kurt saying, man, the whole attraction thing, somebody else, Road Dogg, Brian James, he had gotten sober, man, and I always wondered, like, how did he do it? You know, he still had his personality. He was still funny, but he was sober, and he was moving up in the company, and it was like, man, how's he doing this? Like, I've never been educated on what it takes to be sober, and that appealed to me, and, like, for some reason that day, like, I reached out to Brian just to go, like, hey, man, you've always been there for me. Like, I just want to say thank you for everything. Like, you know. And he's like, hold on, like, this don't sound good. Like, what's going on? So we started talking, and, you know, he convinced me then. He's like, you know, I'm like, I'm heading to do something pretty stupid. But, you know, like, I just want you to know I love you. And it was me asking for somebody to stop the madness, like, pretty much. Like, you know, subconsciously, I think it was me going, like, dude, help me. Like, I don't want to do this, but, like, I don't know what to do. And that's whenever he stepped in. He's like, dude, just give treatment. Just give it a shot. Let us try to get you in treatment. Let us try to get you some help. And hopefully after that, man, like you can always go back to this plan or whatever this is that you're planning on doing, but just try this. Just please try this one time. So I was like, all right, man. So, he ended up, they had me in treatment 24 hours later. And it was the best decision I've ever made, man, because it changed my life. But now, like, being able to help somebody else, like, that's where it's at for me. That's my purpose now.
It's so good to just watching your face as you were telling your story. As you were telling the story of through your addiction, there was a more somber look on your face. And then when you said it was the best decision, your face lit up. Yeah. So, like, you could see that in somebody in recovery when they talk about their recovery and where they're at, that there is that difference. You can see when we talk about where we were to where we come from, to where we are, how far we come. And it's a really great place.
It's weird, dude, because, like, and I'm sorry, I'll ramble. So you guys just tell me to shut up and everything.
It's cool. Talking, right? That's what we're here for, ramble.
But no, it's cool because, I just said it to Kurt earlier, man. And, like, these guys, before, I knew Kurt before, right? But I knew Kurt as just the other guy that wrestles in WWE, a friend, a brother in WWE.
Right.
It's like people that I've worked with now in wrestling that's sober now, like, dude, I don't give a fuck that you're a wrestler now. It's like, I love this guy for who he is. Like, these are some of the most amazing men, like, you'll ever meet. And to get to know somebody like that, like, that's where it's at for me now, because that's not what it used to be. It was all the other materialistic bullshit and, like, titles and all that that made me friends with people. But now it's like truly looking at Kurt for who he is and, like, oh man, like, he's pretty fucking awesome,
And like I said, that to me, that's the bonds that you form with people when, you become that family. And I was sitting in my rooms and I was saying, I have nothing in common with them. All of a sudden, wait, I do, And those are the people that are meant to be. The other people, you're just sort of drawn together because you're in the same profession. Yeah. It's like one of those things, Yeah. How about you, Chris? Well, you're the old head here, man. 2007, you said?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Well,
but I think the answer to your question is there's a lot of aha moments. Mm-hmm. I mean, at least in my experience, probably the first time my mom looked at me like I was some kind of alien after I stole all her DVDs was an aha moment. But it was at the beginning, and I don't even think on my best day at that point I could have put together anything resembling recovery, and then moved on to the next level of progression of aha moment, when the police slap the handcuffs on and toss you in a cage. That's an aha moment where I'm like, this is not working well for me. But for some reason, I can't seem to muster up any minutes of sobriety on my own. And then the next aha moment when the PO says you got to get clean. And then the next aha moment when you realize I can't. And then you go back to the jail and it's another aha moment. It's kind of like a lifetime of aha moments until an opportunity comes or until somebody steps up and says, like, this is the path out of here. And, weirdly enough, the criminal justice system, the thing that I fight against as much as possible these days, is the thing that shoved me towards recovery. And, I think that collection of aha moments build on top of each other and become that final moment, where it's like, hey, this is time. I'm going to make a move towards this, and life's going to get big and beautiful, even if I don't believe it, because I've watched so many people, three guys to my right, do that same exact thing and literally build beautiful communities around them. And just yesterday, we got to watch really everybody hanging out over there in McPherson Square and like connecting with people, making them smile, making them laugh. And 6 years ago, he wouldn't have been able to do that. And 4 years ago, he wouldn't have been able to do that. And 2 years ago, he wouldn't have been able to do that. And similarly, I would not have been able to do that if I was blocked off from the spirit. And it's just so cool to watch everybody step out and do something different and do something fun and awesome like that.
I love it that you said the connections, because you've listened to Johan Hari's TED Talk? No, you haven't? No. There's an assignment for you. It's the best 14 minutes that you can watch on. It's a good bathroom material. But it's based on, have you heard of Rat Park? The concept of Rat Park? It was a concept that scientists and psychologists years and years ago developed about, they put a rat in a box and they put a bottle with water and another bottle with water with cocaine in it. And the rat would go over and hit the bottle with cocaine. Then all of a sudden they introduce other rats into the Rat Park, and they realized that the bottle of cocaine was staying and the regular water was going because there was connections and there was community. And we forget about that because we don't have those connections when we're in our active addiction. You know, we don't have them when we're experiencing our mental health crises that bring us to those, you know, issues that led us to our, you know, the only connection we have is to ourselves, and we think that's all we need. You know, and that's where like that unhealthiness comes. That's where that isolation, when you said you sat at home, you know. So for you, how did you just turn that all around? You know,
I certainly don't believe that I turned anything around. I really just went where my PO told me to go because I didn't feel like going back to jail at that exact moment, and really just kind of following the flow of life, because prior to that, I was directing the flow, and the flow was always headed towards the sewer. And as soon as I stopped directing that flow, whatever you want to call it, the universe, God, Buddha, you know, whatever, directed me a whole lot better. And after a few months of following this flow through the 12 steps, you know, I realized very suddenly, a super aha moment, that like I hadn't shot heroin in a couple months, and I hadn't, you know, done anything devastatingly terrible to my family or, you know, anybody around me. And I couldn't really deny that the universe, or whatever you want to call it, was really building me into something. And as soon as I couldn't deny it, I threw myself as far as I could into recovery, and, you know, screamed it from every mountaintop as offensively as possible, and probably told people that did not care even remotely, you know, about recovery. But that was me. My life had been revolutionized, and I could not talk about it.
And that's how we spread the awareness, by talking about it and by being that voice, especially when you have a platform of any type, you know, or you're in a public eye of any type. You know, did you find that to be more positive for you as you were going through recovery? That
man, I tell you what, like I feel like everything that I've ever done, like, you know, I've had a, you know, okay career, you know, like I've accomplished things from a career standpoint in wrestling and stuff that I set out to accomplish whenever I was a kid. But now looking back, like, and I look at all my accomplishments and stuff, and it's like my greatest asset today is my story. Like, there's nothing that I would trade for my story today, because like I've seen it happen. Kurt's sitting beside me today, sober, and, you know, I'm sitting beside Chris and Jesus, and like we're here and we're sharing this moment, and it's like, if it wasn't for my story, man, I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And if I wasn't here, like, what kind of purpose would I have? So, like, for me, like, I truly believe that my story is my greatest asset, and it will continue to be, like, as long as I'm, like.
I love that.
Me too.
That's great. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
That was great.
Absolutely. And yeah, I remember your career. I remember a mohawk, though, of some type. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, I got my wigs in the car.
Yeah,
It was
right.
all wigs.
Is it real mohawk or?
Yeah.
It just shows my age too. Jesus, you know, a year and a half, you're into this, and what keeps every day? What is it that you wake up for every day and you say, today's going to be another successful, good day in my life? What is it that?
Man, I mean, I have so much going on right now that I had only wished upon when I was younger, and I didn't realize until relatively recent that these moments, that peace that I have now, is what I used to wish for when I was younger, and I finally have it. So I cherish those moments. I cherish what I have. I cherish the people around me, the help that I've gotten, the people that are here, back over there on the cameras. This moment in time right now that we're all connected, that's what I cherish. And everything that we have moving forward, that's that vision that we have. And I kind of want to touch base on something too that was mentioned already, the whole stigma, right? So like also now, for instance, I can mention I'm in recovery. I can do all this. I can go and spread the word. But I think a lot of it has to do with showing the results of what can happen when you actually do follow that process. And as a result of that, I've had other people within our industry that have reached out already, that they're dealing with the same issue because they went through a similar situation of being on the road. They're not being utilized on television, or they're upset with whatever, or they're having personal issues at home. So their result is always to go back to the bottle or the pill or whatever. So they've reached out, and that, in a sense, is amazing that we're able to aid them, help them, or guide them to a certain place because we've already lived it. Now we can go and tell them, okay, this is what I did, but we also have to show them that it can be done. So that's also
walking the talk.
That's the purpose. That's my purpose. And I mean, I have my own business now. I have my own promotion, my own school. So I have students. So
You have your own school now?
I have my professional wrestling school down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So between that, my own promotion, 3 Legs is Wrestling. Ta-da, cheap plug.
Nice. Congratulations on that.
Between all of that, it's giving me purpose to move forward and then stay sober.
It's nice. It's nice when you build something like that on your own outside of, where there was alcohol or drugs involved, and you're building that, and all of a sudden it's like, I can do this. I could be successful at something without having my mind altered or without having to worry about what people think, So that's amazing to feel that, and to keep that going, Kurt, were you going to say something?
I just like Shannon mentioned earlier, I started in professional wrestling at the age of 15. So I left high school to hit the road, man. Like, I was all in on this shit, like the gypsy life. And the guys I looked up to were rock stars and partied. And if you didn't do GHB with the boys in the back, you're considered a pussy. Like that's the lifestyle that I grew up in since 1998, 99. So there's still a lot of friends of mine that are in professional wrestling that I've known for years, that my lifestyle now intimidates them and it scares them. And I'm like, bro, like what Shannon said earlier, I don't give a fuck about if you're world champion, bottom, you're not being used on TV. I don't correlate your self-worth as with your on-screen persona. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
There's a few friends that come to mind that I'm like, they're trepidatious to talk to me, and they're really standoffish because they think I'm like this Bible thumping, I'm going to push, sobriety down their throat.
Right.
And that's the stigma that I would like to break, where we can just we're still friends, man. I'm not going to force you into recovery or religion or make you want to do anything you don't want to. But sometimes I think it's a mirror that you're kind of holding up in front of their face. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? So my dad's still a really, really bad alcoholic, and my mom died a couple years ago from her addiction. And this is a God thing for me, man. It's like the day I got out of treatment, I get a call from the city of Biddeford, Maine. They're like, there's this woman we found in the street, and, somehow they tracked her down to be my mother. I'm like, shit, I haven't seen her in 30-something years, And so I went down to the hospital, and they're like, she has HIV, and she's dying. And I was like, holy fuck. So I was like, met my mom like a week out of treatment. Like, there's no way I could have handled this if I was still partying, So I forgave her. She's a little incoherent, and she got her shit together a little bit, and then she ended up going back out, and then she ended up passing away. But, like, what are the odds of me just completing treatment, man, and, like, getting a call from my estranged mother that I haven't seen in, like, 35 years or whatever, so...
They often say that there's power of recovery that you never can experience. Yeah. And there's those things that just, oh, is it a coincidence? No, it's that power of recovery. Yeah, whatever you believe in, whatever your, spiritual higher power may be, whatever you want to call it, if you have that faith and you believe in it, it comes to you. So it really does. And I believe that. Yeah. And then before I was one of those, like, get the hell out of here with that bullshit, And I believe that.
For me, man, like, religion, recovery, he sees recovery different than I do. You do, he does. We all practice it differently. Same with religion. But the basic premise to me of religion and recovery is love thy neighbor. Treat thy neighbor just as good as you would treat yourself. That most Christianity, Muslims, they're all beautiful religions. And that's the basic premise of all of this. Is Chris probably looks at recovery a little bit different, practices different than I do, but doesn't, we all see this differently.
And I was going to say, it's interesting you say that, because this is 2023. It's almost 2024. Yeah. Our main goal at this point in time, for what I do is to save lives, to keep people alive. And we always say that, if you're going to get out of it, you're either going to go to jail, you're just going to quit, or you're going to die. And that's how you're going to break it. And you sort of touched on that before. But then you have something like Chris, who's been in recovery since 2007. There is that old school way of thinking in recovery. And you know, how do you look at that now, Chris, when you see that? Like, you know, there's different recovery now.
It took a long while. I mean, probably a good decade where I was, you know, vehemently opposed to any kind of medication-assisted treatment or really just anything, because I was kind of brought up in that old school AA thought where you're just straight all the time, and you know, there's no excuse to be anything else. No depression med, nothing. Just, you know, sobriety, rigid and painful sobriety.
Let's go, Bob.
Yeah. And you know, that whole kind of mentality was burned into me, and you know, somebody I looked up to real heavily from Philadelphia, a guy named Dave Malloy. One day, you might know Dave, beautiful guy. And you know, Dave was like, man, I'm really tired of seeing all my friends dying. And I was like, yeah, me too, kind of. You know, it sucks watching our whole generation just die off. And he was like, yeah, I think we have this all wrong, man. I think we really have to start looking at these alternate things that'll keep somebody alive. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that like I had been a closed-minded douchebag for the last decade, to the point where I would speak out against it and that level. So
I'm going to stick up for you there. I don't think you were a
Go
close
ahead.
douchebag. I think it was the fact
was.
that, like, that's what recovery was.
Yeah.
There was no teetering.
Yeah.
There, you know, if you were on methadone, that wasn't recovery.
yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
You know, if you're on anything whatsoever. Like when I first got into recovery, I was like the poster boy for Vivitrol. You know, but
Nice.
to some people in there, they didn't want to hear that. Like, oh, you're getting Vivitrol. Well, you know what? I'm getting a huge shot in my ass instead of injecting in my arm, you know?
Yeah.
You got to pick and choose our battles wisely here.
it's a crutch. It's a crutch.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
one of those.
crutch.
But you know what? If we're keeping people alive,
Yeah.
you know, that's what we're doing, saving lives, and I think that's important to know, and that's what we do. We go out there, you know, the harm reduction is so important to what we do. I run a recovery home, and I allow people who, you know, are, you know, have the medical assisted because they need it. So,
Yeah.
so
I think that, you know, that gets lost too in just the principles behind like some of the step work, right? Like the principles, like if you're living by the principles, man, like you should be living pretty good, like the way I see it. And I think, you know, as addiction evolves, like these ways that, you know, recovery works and ways to reach people, that has to evolve with, you know, these new drugs and these new ways that people are taking these drugs and like how people are reacting to these drugs. And it's like, you know, yeah, like AA, like, dude, like it works. Yeah, you need that rigid structure at the beginning, but man, like, you know, that was also written in the 30s, you know? So like we have to evolve as this, you know, this whole addiction thing evolves within itself. So
because it changes every day.
Yeah.
You know, forget what you learned yesterday because it changes. There's something new that's hitting the streets. There's something new that's out there. There's something new that's being, you know, diagnosed that's going to affect it. So you're all down in Kensington last evening, and you experienced, you know, some things that you may not have experienced prior to in life, or you may have seen in passing by if you were in LA or whatever. And I had a chance just prior to you coming in to read yours, Shannon, on Facebook, what you had written about Kensington, and it's interesting because I'm down there every day, and I don't see that anymore because that's not what to hear that you know take that you had on it was exactly how I felt about it when I went into recovery. Even though I ran the streets down there, and that's where I bought my drugs, and I used my drugs, and I hung out in the streets for as long as possible because the drugs were right there.
Yeah.
To hear what you wrote, I mean, guys, how you feeling today after what you saw last night? You experienced.
I tell you, like it's shocking at first, man. Right? So whenever we get there, like just it was. I was in a little bit of shock, but
Well, tell them what first. Sorry to interrupt you. What happened when we?
Yeah, let him start out.
Well, okay. I'm gonna step on it. Sorry, bro. We're driving through, and they were filming out the window, and they were throwing, was it water bottles?
Coca-Cola.
Yeah. And I come from obviously nothing compared to that, but like a pretty rough neighborhood I grew up in, and I went back to my mindset as a 15-year-old kid. If anybody came into my neighborhood with a group of 20 kids that deal, you know, there's a lot of crack and meth in my trailer park out in the. If anyone came into my neighborhood that I didn't know, not that like I'm a badass but the kids that I did grow up with there would have been a problem. So I went back to like 15-year-old me. I'm like, this isn't gonna be good. I wasn't really worried about the active users out there. I was more worried about the drug dealer guys, like, because I don't know. Like, it was a lot to take in, man, when we first went out there. I've never experienced anything on that scale in my life. You know, we have probably 100 homeless encampment, like 100 people in encampment up in Portland, Maine, where I'm from. But like, my first initial reaction was like, we can't come into someone's turf neighborhood and just start filming them. I'm like, this is probably not a good idea, because I'm seeing some things that some of the people aren't. There's people signaling to other people, you know, and they're using code like the Eagles are here, you know, those Eagles, you know, the Eagles landed, you know, so they're spreading word that we might be you know, we might be cops or someone. I'm like, so I'm seeing all this shit go down. I'm like, fuck, man.
How do you think I felt when I used to try to buy drugs on the street? And they'd be like 5-0. I'm like, no, just sell to me, please. You know.
Yeah.
But no, and that's it. I mean, I was talking with somebody else about this, and they were having a hard time understanding why we gave Narcan to the dealers.
Yeah.
You're like, why would you do that? They're selling. Well, think about it. They're selling the drugs. If someone's out there and they see that, they will use it. Because number one, they don't want to get arrested for having somebody die, and number two, it's a client to them, it's a customer. So we have to pick and choose those battles wisely out there. We've got to learn to coexist. You know, my center for my nonprofit is right in the heart of it all, right where most people don't want to go in Kensington, and you know they sell on the corner, but they're friendly to us because we coexist.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, you know, like, just speaking on that, that's where I was going. Like, by the time, you know, yesterday afternoon come around, we're gonna roll out of there, man. Like, I was comfortable, I was home. Like, and I was like, man, is this me just being weird? Like, because like you don't want to leave. Like, I almost want to pull up a blanket and just hang out in the park and like hopefully have that conversation that
connection,
you know, could pull somebody up, you know, that just to give somebody a little bit of hope. But like, by the time we left, it was almost like, fuck, man, like, I really don't want to go now. Like, I think we've all felt that, because like we've joked about it throughout the day. Chris is like, hey, we should probably just head back down there today and just hang out.
I have a lot more in common with a lot of those folks than some people I've worked with that are in high rises and wear suits.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they were more real than a lot of people I've worked with.
A lot of the people out there on the street came from high rises and had suits.
You know what I'm saying, though? So I was definitely overwhelmed and uncomfortable when I first got there, but by the time we left, they're just people, man. They're just, you know, smiles, and a lot of people wearing crosses. Just, you know, it's just.
At the end of the day, we're all the same.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Chris, how about you? I mean, you grew up an hour away from here. You know, everybody's heard the story stuff. Was this your first experience?
No, I mean, I'd come down here to the last stop over and over and over and over again over the last, 15 years. Not since it moved a couple years ago, but I'd been down here.
So
I
you know
never.
Eddie?
Yes, yeah, Eddie Z. Love
Z.
that guy.
Good guy.
I haven't really done anything nefarious down here, because the first time I came here was 2008 when they asked me to speak at the last stop, and I was terrified because I only ever heard the stories of Kensington, like what I heard in jail and heard in rehab, and I thought my 1994 Plymouth Sundance was going to be up on blocks by the time the meeting was over. I was terrified to even come here, so I definitely understand that reaction of it being overwhelming. I mean, it was the dead of winter when I came here the first time, and it was not overwhelming at all. It was just really cold, and then I realized everybody was inside the last stop. But yesterday, I mean, it was a lot. It had changed a good bit since that first time. There were a whole lot more people floating around down here, and I was just really grateful to be able to make some connections. In the first 5 minutes that we were out of the vehicle, I had 3 different people from Lancaster previously in recovery that had recognized me and sought me out, and I was so thankful to see them here and kind of get that realization, and the fact that they walked up to me in the middle of Kensington while they're doing that stuff and just trusted me enough to know that I would love them, and man, it was just, that was a powerful thing to be here. So.
Because they know you're not going to judge them for being back out there.
Yeah.
We're not going to look at them being like, what are you doing back here? It's not like, we already have enough guilt and shame for what we do. We're not going to instill more of that. And Jesus, from LA, LA has a huge population, in homelessness, people that are substance use disorder, mental health, all on the streets. How was it for you when you got on the avenue last night and saw what you saw?
So, I mean, growing up in Los Angeles, I mean, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and we have a huge homeless population, and it's increased in the last couple of years. But back then, I used to help out at homeless shelters. So, I mean, I was used to seeing people in similar situations, but just for a different reason. I mean, obviously, the cost of living, everything over there is a lot more. Yeah, there was drug issues, but that wasn't like the main focus. It was a lot of other just homelessness from they couldn't afford, right? Either the healthcare system was too expensive or they couldn't go get help or XYZ. So seeing that yesterday, it wasn't a big culture shock per se, but it was more so just seeing all the needles on the ground, seeing the scratches all over their faces, like them being in a very zombie-like state. That's the part that really was eye-opening. And then they were just shooting up in front of us. There was cops that were right there, and then they were shooting up right next to them, and there's ambulances behind us. That's the part that was heartbreaking, that I wish that there was more that could be done. But also, as it was already mentioned, once we started feeding them and giving them, clothing or, hygiene products, just seeing them crack that initial smile and then seeing that little bit of, seeing their eyes, that you can tell that they're still there. It's just.
Well, all they want is a little compassion. All they want is a little empathy, because nobody, that's people judge them. Even their family, when their families come out to look for them, it's judgment and it's berating. It's not empathizing with them. So to have that, and with
that too, like I know, for instance, at least on my end, when my drinking got really heavy, like I felt like I was forgotten, like everybody had abandoned me. Granted, I mean, I ended up abandoning them, really, but I had that feeling of abandonment and that I was forgotten. But so I feel like for us to be there and be giving them something, it lets them know that they're not forgotten, that there's still people that care.
Absolutely. And that's so important to know that, and what better people to care than people who have already been there, So what are you guys doing in town anyway, Chris? Let's talk about that. What are you guys doing here?
We just like to come hang out in Kensington now and then.
We're doing
you and everybody else.
We're doing yoga.
Shane and I are doing yoga in the park later.
I assume that means.
Yeah, we got a seminar on 238 tonight in Doubletree. Just kidding.
I'll assume 238's Jesus' room, but yeah. I'll assume you want to talk about Fringe Arts.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me, what better thing to talk about is the stories that we tell.
Yeah, why not? So we had this thing go on in February where we did our first night of recovery. We brought out, Jesus and Kurt, not Shannon, but X-Pac. Sean Waltman was our other guest on that one. And we did that at the Ware Center in Lancaster, and it was just such a beautiful night. I mean, the connection, how many 3 people went to treatment we were talking about. As a result of those stories, and I think Brandon Novak also joined us, and shameless plug, that thing's going to be out on Amazon in July. So
don't ever shameless plug. This is how we spread awareness.
I know,
So.
But there's shame because I'm a little funny looking.
Well,
and,
plus we're addicts, so there's shame involved.
No, but we had such a great time that night. We were spitballing like we really want to do this again. And, we love Meg, and we really love what the Grace Project does down here. And we thought, how cool would it be to do Night of Recovery Philadelphia edition? We hooked up with Shannon, who we've known in recovery for the last several years. And, really, really, really just pumped to go to Fringe Arts and have hopefully a different but equally beautiful experience down here in Philadelphia.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to getting there tonight and hearing the stories and seeing the connections and just watching the people. I like to go to those and people watch because those connections, once again, is what I get excited about.
And you'll also see video footage of our trip to Kensington last night.
Oh, nice.
Tonight at Fringe Arts.
Nice.
Because the crew from Babaconda Productions is currently working very, very diligently while we're here talking.
Shout out.
Yeah, we
To
see you
make
back
sure,
there.
there's Bobby. Shout out to Bobby. They're working right now to put together little video packages to be put into the show tonight. So I'm really excited to be able to watch that for the first time a little bit later with you.
That's great. That's great. I'm looking forward to it. Guys, you all have such amazing stories. You all do some great things. Your voices are so important. If you had somebody in front of you, the first-time person, that really needs to get into recovery, what would be your words of what voice would you give to them?
I mean, life gets big. Life gets so big and so beautiful. And if I, discounted recovery in 2007, there are so many people that would be missing out on life right now. So, like, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for everybody around you. That's the opposite of the advice people always used to give me. And I think it's wrong. I think it's backwards. I don't want to do this for me. I want to do this for this guy right here because I love him. I want to do it for that guy because I love him. I want to do it for that girl because I love her.
And I'm glad you said that because we forget about the affectation it has on our family, our friends, the people we work with, the people we encounter, the people who look up to us, the people that we just pass by on the street. And we're really doing it for all of them because they're there for us. So I like that. I love that, man.
Yeah,
Right
absolutely.
on. How about you, Shannon? What do you got for me?
Man, like, ask for help and educate yourself. Like, for me, like, man, I knew I was an addict and accepted the fact that I was an addict for so long. And, like, I was cool with it. I was like, I'm just a drug addict. You either want to ride with me or you don't, Like, if you don't, fuck you. If so, then watch me shoot my drugs and let's hang out. But I didn't know how to stop the rat race, man. I didn't know how to get out of this vicious cycle. I was going around and around and around and around. Like, I didn't have the education as a child. Nobody, I had a half brother who was a drug addict, a grandmother that was an alcoholic. My childhood was chaos. And it's like nobody ever taught me, like, how to get out of this rat race. Then, get into wrestling. I'm raised by savages who are part of the rat race, and then it's like nobody's educating me, nobody's telling me. Then finally it gets to the point where it's like, man, like, how do I get out of this? And I didn't know how. But talking about, through attraction, through somebody else doing it, Brian, Road Dogg, like, he was that person for me that I seen that he had got out of it. I just didn't know how. So, like, if you're struggling, man, like, I just feel like educate yourself. Like, know what it is you're going through and how to get out of it. Like, find somebody or Google it or, like, for me, I just didn't have the education to stop this.
Call us. We'll get you out.
Yeah, like,
That's
give us a
so
buzz.
important.
Email us. Like,
And we're going to put your contact information up for everybody as well, just so you can all, follow you, contact you. But it's also important, I get a lot of phone calls from parents, from loved ones, and I'm constantly begging them to educate themselves on addiction and what it is because they don't. They just stop. It's so easy to just stop. Okay. Tell us that.
that
but
mentality's so dangerous.
It is.
Right? Like, I got friends who say that now, like, and like we'll go back and forth and they'll say, like, it's a choice, it's a decision that you make. Just stop it. Like, people just need to stop it. And it's like, dude, you've never been there. Like, if you were there, you would understand why we say that this just ain't a choice.
It is not a choice.
That you can stop overnight. It's like, you have to, it's a process, man. Like, it's not, but like, yeah, education's the key, I think. Like, we got to educate some people, and that's.
I love that. What do you got for me, Kurt?
Somebody said this to me once, man. Look at your friends. That's your future, good or bad, So who you surround yourself around, you're looking at your future. So for me, I used to hang out with people that used me for money because I would buy the drinks, I would buy whatever. Girls that used me for whatever, I used them. So it was a very materialistic, superficial relationship. Most of my life, most of my decisions were based on does Kurt come out better? The ego. Everything was about me. And 95% of those people that I surrounded myself around back when I was partying hard, I don't even talk to anymore. They don't ever reach out to me. How you doing? Merry Christmas, whatever. I build houses back in Maine. I do construction. This morning I'm on the phone with this really educated lady named Wendy who's educating me on fire code and setbacks in Portland, Maine. And I'm just like, holy shit. Because I don't know anything about it. And she's educated me and she's smart. And I get excited to learn now. And so what I'm saying is you got to surround yourself around people that know more than you at the end of the day. Look at who you're around, who you surround yourself around. It's a good glimpse into your future. So you can always change that. But I was surrounding myself with some pretty bad people, man. And we were using each other to help fill time and void. because they needed someone to party with too, you know. But I pick and choose who I give my time and energy and love to very wisely now. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's the best advice I'd give anybody.
Isn't it nice to have power of yourself?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's nice to be comfortable in your own skin, because I needed to get fucked up to be like back in the day, man. There's no way I could be talking to you guys. I'd be so because you hate yourself. You know, I did.
It would probably been a 3-minute conversation. You would have gone.
Yeah. So you learn to love yourself, man. So to your question is surround yourself around people that know more than you.
Love that. And Jesus, for you.
Man, you made me last. Everybody already said everything.
You better
basically.
you better deliver here, bro.
I was trying to think of something while you guys were talking.
At least you didn't say
And then-
what all 3 of them said. You know?
that. No, I was trying to think
Don't
of
let us
something, but
down.
like somebody will then touch on that topic. I was like, oh man, all right. No, I mean, and kind of going back into what's already been said. I mean, there is hope. There is help out there. I would neglect myself so much, and I would kind of push everybody away. And I thought that I was just me, that it was everybody against me, when in reality it was always me against me. And all I had to do was reach out and ask for help. I definitely want to break the stigma. I know you've mentioned it many times, because there is. It's in a nice little awakening that we have, that we can talk about this now. And there is help. There is a hope out there. A good friend once told me that, you know, we're all memories, and without them, we equal nothing. So at this point, I just want to become a good memory for other people, and not the person that I was before.
Okay, that was great. I love that right there.
That was good.
That was really good. I like that. Very cool.
Also,
So-
Bobby's awesome.
Nice.
Bobby's
So, Jesus,
awesome.
and if people are trying to put Jesus' name, you did go by a different name in wrestling at one point.
I used to go by the name of Rodriguez in WWE. Yeah.
Once again, showing my age. You know, it's to see
Roll
that.
a couple R's real quick.
But so if they want to follow you on social media, on your Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, where would they find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at RRWWE, on Instagram at the letter J _ Rodriguez 818, or
that
go to
Rodriguez with a Q?
RecoveryWrestling.com.
He does that so well with that accent. You know, just flows.
It's weird. It's
Flows
like
really
he's
well, you know. So, but that's great, and we'll put that up so people can find it. How about you, Kurt? Where can they? And Kurt, what were you known as in wrestling?
I was the ballroom dancer Fandango.
You were.
So, funny story. I'm gonna make it quick because I know we're wrapping up. But they called WWE. I got released from WWE. I'm doing some flooring, putting down hardwood flooring, because I do a lot of my own work. And they go, "What do you want your new social media name to be?" I'm like, "Fuck, I don't know." Like, fucking Dirty Dango Curdy at Twitter and Gmail. So that if you guys want to reach out to me, and I still have Hotmail too. So that's
So it went from Fandango.
to Dirty Dango.
Dirty Dango.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Shannon, how about you?
You're so dirty. Yeah, not for me. You know, Twitter at the Shannon brand, THE Shannon brand. Email me, man. Like if there's somebody listening to this, you're struggling, like hit me up in my email, gaschambertattoo@gmail.com. Yeah. But yeah, and then Facebook, Shannon Moore. So reach out for help, man, if you're struggling.
Love it. Right on. And Chris?
I got Instagram at Chris Dreisbach, and
Spell that
Facebook-
last name.
Facebook and TikTok are at Christopher Dreisbach, because you got to go full on with those for some reason.
Okay.
But that's DREISBACH.
There's no way I can
Kurt.
spell that. Sorry.
It's pronounced Trackenbach.
But I think the
always mess it up.
really cool thing there is you could reach out to any of us through any of those platforms, and we will go to war to get you to help, get you where you need to go.
That's awesome.
If you can't get us there, we have an OnlyFans. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait,
Different show, different time.
you got rid of your own?
Is this on? Is this mic on?
Well, guys, I'm glad you had a chance to go down to Kensington Avenue last night and experience what you probably have heard so much about, you know, for so long, or you may have seen in YouTube videos, or, you know, just, you know, you've heard. And so I'm glad you were able to experience that. I'm glad it, you know, struck a chord in you and helps you sort of remember where you came from to where you're at now and why you are where you are. And thank you for being where you are, because your voices are helping other people. You're lifting other people up. You're lifting each other up. And to be able to sit here with 5 of us with over 30 years of sobriety in one room, that's amazing. You know, keep kicking ass, you guys. Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm honored. You spent the day with me. This is great. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you all tonight. Keep doing what you're doing. Everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Britt James on USALA Media with Be a Voice. Have a great rest of your day. And remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice.